Good evening, friends, and welcome to the Weeknight. I'm Michael Steele with Luke Russard and Elise Jordan in for Simone. Breaking tonight, Trump officials are already rolling out their plans to subvert America's elections after last night's primetime debacle. But Democrats and even some top Republicans are calling out the administration's blatant lies.
Also breaking, new details on that disastrous meeting Epstein survivors had with Todd Blanche. Plus, a former Trump lawyer is now refusing to meet with the House Oversight Committee to discuss his Epstein ties. Congressman Suhas Subramaniam is at the table.
And later, our conversation with the U.S. attorney who was appointed by a bipartisan group of federal judges at 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning and then fired by Donald Trump 54 minutes later. But we start with breaking news. Fresh from a primetime speech completely divorced from reality, Donald Trump is now unleashing his lapdog, Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin, onto state election officials to make sure they comply with his attacks on America's free and fair elections. Today, Mullin sent letters to top election officials in 4 states, citing completely unsubstantiated data about non-citizens on voter rolls. And brand new tonight, Nevada's Secretary of State pushed back, saying, quote, "These numbers are wildly speculative," and accused the administration of trying to create, quote, "chaos and doubt." But here's Mullin this morning laying out the stakes for election officials who dare to defy the dear leader.
If the election officials, once we gave them the information they need to secure their elections, and they chose not to, then those individuals can also be held accountable by fines, by penalties, and even, depending on how far it goes, prison time.
Mullin's threat came just hours after the president recycled his old election conspiracies in that desperate primetime address. Last night, Trump again amplified debunked lies about the 2020 election and that his own courts and his own intelligence agencies have repeatedly examined and rejected. And even though he's been back in power for 18 months with plenty of yes men doing his bidding, he has yet to produce any proof to support his claims.
Now, folks, there's a reason Trump is ramping up his attacks on our elections. Americans are turning on him and the Republican Party. This is not complicated. A new Washington Post poll finds just 37% of Americans approve of Trump's job, his performance, what he's doing, while 61% disapprove, don't like it, don't want any parts of it. And he's terrified that voters will reject him this fall, along with the party. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle seem to see the writing on the wall as well.
Instead of focusing on the nation's needs, as always, he nurses his grievances. As always, he centers his own fear of the accountability that he will face when we win decisively this fall.
As a Republican, my concern is that it's setting up a Democratic wave election. We should be talking about what matters to the people around the kitchen table. And right now, they can't afford their health care, their housing, their groceries, or the gasoline.
Tonight, Sky Perryman and Cornell Belcher are with us here at the table. We're glad to have them. I'm just going to start with this notion where the last point was made about what this looks like to the American people and how they're perceiving the storylines and why the numbers are low. If I'm running a political organization, let's say a political party that happens to be in the opposition to all of this crazy, you know what I'm doing? I'm taking Markwayne Mullin's hearing, his senatorial confirmation hearing. I'm taking the hearing of all of Trump nominees, and I'm playing how they pledge to uphold the law and do the right thing, and then put up there exactly what they're doing now. Right? Because this is the BS line here, where they get out here and they sit in front of Congress and they spew all this crap about how good they're going to be. Yes, I can stand up to Donald Trump, right? And then when they get the job, when the Senate Republicans confirm them, what do their bony behinds do? They stand in front of microphones like this and they threaten states. They threaten the electoral process. They threaten the freedoms of the American people. And so that's the drawing line here, folks. At the end of the day, Senate Republicans gave you this. They gave you this in every damn nominee that they approved. They gave you this. That's why we're here, and that's why it's going to get worse. You've got someone right now prepared to come before the country to be what, our Attorney General? Mm-hmm. What the hell do you think he's going to do when the Senate Republicans approve him? And they will approve him because they don't have a choice. They're weak.
You saw there Senator Cassidy saying this is shaping up to be a wave election for Democrats. And the reason is because of the polls we showed. The economy, people are not feeling it. They think they don't have any faith in this president, and for good reason. There's a lot of reasons for that. But I think that last night's speech was incredibly important because, in my opinion, it's putting us on a pathway now to a constitutional crisis. The president did a reach for some sort of foreign election interference, which his own intelligence apparatus says does not exist. That's what happened. He's doing this to sow seeds of chaos and discord so that come November, he could attempt, in the face of free and fair elections, to try and not fall, shall we say, I'm not going to say fall victim. I'm going to say to actually have to put himself in front of the American people and make his case, and make his party's case. They don't want to do that. So this is what they're trying to do. Two other things I take away from that, though. This idea that China is behind all that. China's our banker and our builder. You want to start World War III and say that China is heavily going after our free and fair elections? That's not a good look. And then the other thing I would just say is, if you put this out and you project it out to where it's going, I'm very concerned about individual counties in the United States, because these are the ones who you're starting to see election deniers, as Lise mentioned on our air yesterday, are being stocked with these folks.
Yeah, they've been there for a while.
Who are, and they have some very strong abilities to get ballots thrown out and whatnot. And just lastly, the other speech though yesterday was very important, Stephen Miller. And he started to characterize the leftists that have to be purged. That's another thing to keep an eye on, folks.
Sky, let's break down what the actual risks are looking at this upcoming election and the different measures that Donald Trump's government is trying to do to assert federal control. You have the DHS with the voter rolls and the voter databases. What places are you most concerned about in the country when it comes to this next election?
Look, we're concerned, but the most prevalent concern is that all the distraction and all the shock and awe and all the intimidating things, like a cabinet-confirmed secretary standing up today and threatening to jail people for participating in our elections, is going to keep the American people from voting. We are determined to make sure that doesn't happen. But that is the concern, and this feeding of the cycle of today he's going to do this, tomorrow he's going to do this. The bottom line is, every federal court that has considered whether Donald Trump gets to take state voter data has said 0. He is 0 for 16, I believe is the count right now. The SAVE voter database, the modified SAVE voter database that we believe, we don't know, we're going to find out, but we believe that the DHS secretary was referencing today, a federal judge has already blocked the administration's use of that modified SAVE database, and the administration is losing in the courts. Now, the courts are not the silver bullet. The people are, but a lot of this is a lot of window dressing and a lot of fear mongering in order to try to get the American people not to participate, to think that it doesn't matter. And I think you're going to see millions of Americans. That's not going to happen. But that's, I think, part of the concern.
Can I real quick clarify a point? Because I think it's an important one that you said, and I don't want people to gloss over it. When you talk about the data and the access to the data, this administration is trying to go after and get the voter files. Folks, just call your Board of Elections.
Publicly available.
That's
why China has.
Yes, China can buy them.
This is the whole thing about the China. I mean, it's like, it's publicly available.
Right. So what the hell are you doing, administration? Just call the local Board of Elections if you want the data files. We get them all at party.
I earn a living from the data files.
Literally, you live and die by the voter files.
Having access to the data files. Look, one thing I think is interesting is, if you step back from this, is, look, we are campaign people, and we know we're going into close of, at the end of the summer, where it's full steam ahead. You're running out of time to change the dynamics that are happening in this country. And if you look at the current Washington Post poll, he's underwater 30 points with independents on the economy.
That's key.
He's underwater, 30-some points with suburban voters. And this is also a really interesting point. All right, and you all know this well. He is now underwater with white non-college voters on the economy, right? So this is kind of baked in, and your opportunity to change this through policy or legislation or through or just normal political levers is lessening by the day.
Oh, I think it's gone.
It's very gone. Very much at this
This
point.
is what I don't get, Cornell. So why are Democrats only running ahead by 4 points in the latest CNBC poll?
You want the truth?
Yes, exactly.
Well, part of it is that, it's a pox on all their houses. And you see it with even within internally on the left, there is a lot of angst and anxiety and disapproval of Democrats. Look, when I was when I was polling for Obama in 2008, 2012, I never saw younger voters underwater with Democrats and with the top tier Democrats. They're underwater with young voters right now. So you do see this angst. But I will say this: it is going to be a referendum on Trump. If Democrats make this about anything but a referendum on Trump, and is problematic. But we've also seen Democrats with that not great brand also overperform in every election we've seen and since 2024.
The senators from Georgia have a great template. The rest of the party can just follow them. Seriously, it works very well. Sky, our own Vaughn Hilliard is having an all-star week. He called up last night with John Sullivan, who's the new resident conspiracy theorist at the White House. I believe he's a special government employee. I want to play the clip, and then we're going to talk about it on the other side.
Do you acknowledge that there were no votes changed in 2020?
All I can acknowledge is what the intelligence shows, right? I only know the intelligence community has zero evidence that someone has flipped that a foreign power flipped a vote in 2020, 22, or 24.
And so the 2020 election was, in fact, the results as we, the American public.
I'm still researching, so let me. This is the first.
But there's no intelligence.
You
been on there is no intelligence that the election would have said that Donald Trump was president.
Just incredible dogged reporting from Vaughn there. But ladies and gentlemen at home, I want to explain something that's a little confusing if you're not in this crazy DC bubble that we are. That guy Sullivan is the reason why the speech happened last night. He is the one, along with the other cronies in the White House, that were pushing the president to go out and stake this claim that there is foreign interference in the election. And then right afterwards, he said, well, I don't really know. I don't see any proof from the intelligence communities. What are we doing? What are we doing? So, Sky, when you see that, they make a lie, and then they undercut the lie. I mean, this is not even amateur hour. This is a joke.
The American people are getting a front row seat to all the desperation. But you know what? At 6 a.m. this morning, a little bit before 6 a.m. this morning, our team was already in court. We filed a federal lawsuit this morning because guess what? It's not just that Donald Trump was spewing lies that his own people, I guess, in the face of Vaughn, admit. But for weeks, they have been withholding documents. The FBI has been withholding documents. The DOJ has been withholding documents. The ODNI has been withholding documents about the very theories that Donald Trump put at issue last night. So we're in federal court to force that transparency and to continue to make sure that the American people understand. And I think they do. I don't think this speech went that well for the president last night. This morning, a lot of Republicans were ducking their heads, didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Almost like they might get sued if they talk about it.
So desperate.
Well, if you're a Republican sitting in a swing district anywhere in this country, this did not help you last night, because now you have to answer all these questions. For the next week, you're going to be dogged in at home answering these questions, not about anything that actually matters to American people, about the economy. Oh, and have we forgotten about the war? That's upside down as well. So now they're talking about this nonsense from 2020. And again, the president is not helping congressional Republicans.
So let's take a quick listen to Senator John Cornyn of Texas and Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana on the president's speech, because I've got a little small point I want to make on the other side.
The Wounded Bear Caucus.
Just a little one.
I don't understand talking about what happened 6 years ago. Frankly, as a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, there wasn't a whole lot new, but the bottom line is none of this would have changed the outcome. So I guess I don't get it.
Our electoral system is incredibly decentralized.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredibly decentralized. There's not like one place where you can go and control the master election across the country. Every state has their own system, and within that state, there's sometimes subsystems.
Folks at this table, y'all have heard me make that last point over and over and over again. We do not have a national election. We don't have federal elections in the sense that it's one big pot. We have 50 individual elections and 7 elections that are carried out by our territories, right? So you have these individual states doing their thing. But what I thought was very interesting, and I'm just going to put it right here. Anybody can play with what I'm about to say. So I just found it interesting that the National Intelligence Council, that was the documents that was released last night, noted that the individuals who were involved in this, Putin and the gang, right, are conspiring to intensify their efforts as the election approaches to orchestrate a high-profile corruption scandal implicating former Vice President Biden and the Democratic Party at the peak of the 2020 U.S. presidential campaign. Their aim, Putin and crew, is to defeat the former vice president, that would be Biden, and ensure the president's victory, that would be the current president then, Donald
So if
Trump.
I'm hearing you correctly, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
are you saying that last night
Yes.
Donald Trump proved that there was foreign interference, but it was
Yes.
actually against Joe Biden?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Imagine that.
Whoa!
And you can access the documents that prove it on the White House website.
There you go.
Right there.
So thank you, Mr. President.
He's getting to the bottom of it.
What the hell? I mean, anyone. I mean, think about it. I mean, the work you're doing, you're seeing this stuff real time
Every
as you're
day.
going through
Every
it.
day.
And then you're getting the back end political consequences of it.
Yeah.
Where do we go with this? I mean, because this is it.
Really quickly, what's problematic, and you know this better than anyone at this table, what's problematic is that there are 38% of Americans and his base who are absolutely going to be all in on it.
They eat it up like pudding.
They're going to eat it up like pudding. And that 38% turns to millions upon millions upon millions of people that think that our elections are rigged, and what are they going to do about it?
Well, I know what the rest of us are going to do about it. The 62%.
Every day is Four Seasons landscaping.
Sky Perryman, Cornell Belcher, thank you both very much for being with us. Folks, we need you to stay with us because up next, Alan Dershowitz is now backing out of his interview with the House Oversight Committee to discuss his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Also, we're going to ask Congressman Suhas Subramanian what that means for the panel in just a moment. A little bit later, Pete Hegseth now supporting gender-affirming care. Yeah, you heard me right. You did. You actually did. Yeah, you did. More on that story coming up right here on the Weeknight. MS Now has confirmed that Alan Dershowitz, the former Trump lawyer who also happened to help craft Jeffrey Epstein's 2008 plea deal, will not be appearing at his closed-door deposition scheduled for Monday with the House Oversight
The most
Committee.
important part of Donald Trump's election speech was not what he said about 2020. It was what his administration did the following morning. Federal letters were sent to election officials in California, Nevada, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. The states were told to examine their voter rolls using information supplied by the Department of Homeland Security. Then came the warning. Officials who refused to cooperate could potentially face funding consequences, fines, or other legal action. That transformed a political speech into a direct confrontation between Washington and the states. But behind the dramatic accusations is a basic question that has still not been answered. What does the government's data actually prove? The administration says federal comparisons have identified large numbers of possible non-citizens connected to state voter records. That sounds alarming, but a database match is not the same thing as proof. It does not automatically establish that a person remains a non-citizen. It does not establish that the registration record is current. And most importantly, it does not prove that the individual cast an illegal ballot. Imagine someone who entered the United States legally, was recorded in an immigration database, later became a naturalized citizen, and then registered to vote. An older federal record may still identify that person by their previous immigration status. A computer comparison could flag the name, even though the person is now fully eligible. Names can also be duplicated, addresses change, birth dates are entered incorrectly. Government databases are powerful, but they are not flawless. That is why election officials in the targeted states are demanding more information about how the administration produced its figures. Nevada's Secretary of State described the numbers as speculative and warned that unsupported allegations could create chaos and doubt. And that may be the most important phrase in this entire story, chaos and doubt. Because this dispute is not happening in isolation. It is unfolding months before the November 2026 midterm elections, at a time when Trump's approval ratings are weak and many Americans remain deeply concerned about prices, housing, healthcare, and the broader economy. A recent Washington Post Ipsos survey placed Trump's approval in the high 30s, with a clear majority disapproving of his performance. Some Republican lawmakers are now openly questioning why the president is returning to controversies from 6 years ago, instead of focusing on the problems voters are experiencing today. That does not prove the administration's motive, but it explains why critics see this as something larger than a technical effort to clean voter rolls. They believe the groundwork is being laid for a familiar argument, that any disappointing Republican result must have been caused by fraud, foreign interference, or corrupt election officials. The administration denies that interpretation and says it is attempting to protect election integrity. So where does the truth lie? The answer will depend on evidence, not speeches, threats, or partisan assumptions. The government must show how the names were identified, whether the records were verified, whether the individuals were genuinely ineligible, and whether any of them actually voted. Without those steps, a large headline number can create a powerful impression while proving very little. There is also a constitutional dimension. American elections are highly decentralized. States administer voter registration, local authorities operate polling places, and thousands of counties process ballots under different systems. The federal government has important responsibilities involving civil rights, cybersecurity, and enforcement of federal law. But it cannot simply replace state election systems because the president distrusts their results. That is why the courts are likely to become central. States can challenge demands they consider unlawful. Voting rights organizations can sue if eligible citizens risk being removed. Judges can require the administration to explain its methods and legal authority. But court cases alone will not resolve the political danger. Even unsuccessful threats can intimidate election workers. Unverified accusations can persuade voters that participation is pointless. And aggressive voter roll purges can create confusion for legitimate voters who discover too late that their registration has been questioned. This is the paradox at the center of the controversy. A policy presented as protecting confidence in elections could ultimately reduce confidence if it is based on exaggerated or poorly verified claims. None of this means voter rolls should be ignored. States should remove dead voters, duplicate records, and people who are genuinely ineligible. Every legal vote should count, and illegal voting should be investigated wherever credible evidence exists. But accuracy requires more than running names through a database and announcing a frightening number. It requires verification, transparency, and due process. Over the coming weeks, watch 4 developments closely. First, will the administration release the methodology behind its claims? Second, will the targeted states comply, negotiate, or go to court? Third, will federal officials distinguish between possible database matches and confirmed unlawful votes? And fourth, will Republican leaders support the pressure campaign or distance themselves as the midterms approach? Those answers will reveal whether this is a serious election security initiative or the beginning of a political strategy designed to place future results under suspicion. The fight over 2020 may dominate the headlines, but the election truly at stake is November 2026. Subscribe to the channel for fact-driven political analysis that separates verified evidence from partisan claims. And tell us in the comments, is this a legitimate effort to protect elections or an attempt to undermine confidence before the votes are even counted?